everybody, to the 30th episode of the Oreninc podcast series with Mickey Fulp, the Mercenary Geologist. Mickey, thanks for joining us again this morning.
Always my pleasure, Kai.
Wow, we've been trying to keep a schedule here, so 2 weeks after we recorded the last one, we're trying to be a little more strict these days. We're traveling less, the year's winding down. The markets are what they are. We just talked about that. They're slowing down dramatically. Buying has disappeared. We're just at the beginning or in the middle of tax loss selling, and we're going to talk about that in a second as well. And Mickey, you're gonna update us on what's happening in the metals or in the commodity space, like what metal prices are looking like these days, what we're experiencing there. I'm going to start us off with the Oreninc Index real quick. Not much to talk about. I sound like a broken record. I keep saying that. But I do see some optimism because for some reason, despite all the tax loss selling and the low volumes in the markets, especially in the TSX-V, we see our index increasing. And that's for the second week in a row. Last week, we've seen an index score of 37.8 points. And this year, it's even 45.78. So we're getting somewhere. And this is driven by larger deals happening. This week especially, we've seen a surprising investment by SSR Mining into Silvercrest. I'm really happy for the Silvercrest group. I'm quite close to them. I know them really well. So I'm happy for them to get a 9.9% investor and lock in some good money, especially above market. I think that's a great sign. I'm a bit surprised that SSR is doing that. I think that's their first ever investment in a junior, and especially in the minority stake. And we've also seen Barkerville Gold Mines raise another $25 million in flow-through. And Mickey, the two of us, we've discussed that earlier. We do see, or at least I expect, flow-through financings to increase. And I think that's the first taste of it going into 2019. Other than that, we've seen a couple of larger financings besides those in the $9 million range close. We've seen Lumina Gold recently close a $20 million financing. I mentioned the $14 million Seabridge financing 2 weeks ago. So there is activity in the market. There is money on the sidelines, and I just listened to an interview of Rick Rule, who said, hey, even our investors or our clients said they have money sitting on the sideline waiting for the right deal to invest in. So not everything is bad, despite the TSX venture just keep dipping down. Mickey, let's talk about that exactly. I think we hinted at it where we spoke about it before I hit the record button here. What's happening on the venture? We're just trickling down. We're below 500, 600 points.
We're dribbling down, trickling away, day after day after day. It's quite impressive on very low volumes. At yearly lows right now on most days, perhaps averaging 40 million shares a day over the last couple of weeks. And I'm looking at the chart right now, and we are down 9 of the last 10 days. The index, as we speak, is 576 and change, and that's the low for the day. I expect this to continue. I expect volumes to pick up sometime in the next 2 weeks. We are 2 weeks away to trading. I suppose it's 10 trading days from my witching day, which is December 15th. And time again, we see this venture index low at December 15th, plus or minus 2, maybe 3 trading days. So the all-time low of the index is 476. I don't think we'll go that low. But certainly I expect lower than today's.
No, most definitely. The trend is not our friend in this case. So
no. Well, but it is really your friend if you're a player in this market, because stocks are on sale and they keep getting cheaper and cheaper. We're past rollback prices. And that is in the Walmart sense of a rollback. We're into fire sale sort of prices here on some really good stocks. So hopefully you've kept some dry powder and you can pick off a couple of things here.
I think
I've got a list of 10. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have enough money to buy all 10 of them, but I'm picking away at various things.
No, there's definitely a lot of buying opportunities out there, and I do have a couple in mind. I'm going to start picking up here very soon. So
Yeah.
um, that'll probably would be within the next few days, actually, probably before week close. We'll see what happens, but I do see a little bit of green on my watch list, but it's more in the half cent range than anything else. So
Well, you're not going to be able to buy at the low unless you continue to put in stink bids. But that's not always the goal to buy at the very low. You just want to buy stocks at attractive prices. One thing that's contrarian to this right now has been the rise in commodity prices since Trump and Xi had their dinner. I think that was on Sunday night, and both countries put a positive spin on it. The markets reacted quite well. The large U.S. markets have been up significantly over the last couple of days. The commodities have soared, or up significantly. Gold 1237. We haven't seen that price for quite some time. Copper yesterday was at 288. It's dropped back down a bit today. So we're seeing some strength in commodities. And the one that, before I talk about palladium, which has gone exponential, the commodity space, in my opinion, right now are controlled solely by geopolitics and the U.S. dollar. And that depends on U.S.-China tariffs and the outcome of that. But it also involves infrastructure build-outs. And so any positive sentiment we see in commodity space is based on the idea that not only is the U.S. going to start an infrastructure build-out in 2019, with that being one of the compromises thought to be worked out in Congress, available to be worked out with both the Dems and the Rhinos on board with that. China, with a slowing economy, what do when their economy starts going south a bit? They build infrastructure. That's the way they work their way out of the 2008 global economic crisis, while every other country in the world was doing quantitative easing. China embarked on infrastructure build-outs.
no, and I do see that happening, or desperately need. There's desperate need, not just in China for that, but obviously China, the dragon, is the big influencer there.
Yeah, yeah. But meanwhile, the specs are in control. The speculators, mainly hedge funds, and they have been very negative on the market, massively short. So as soon as they flip, and they will flip at some point, then I look for commodity prices to be much stronger in 2019.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you hinted at palladium. That's something I really wanted to talk about because
Yeah.
I've read about it earlier. People say this is overhyped. This is a bubble. Where's the demand coming from? Because we're close to parity with gold. Where do you see it? What's driving the palladium price right now?
Well, that's a couple of things. Supply deficit right now, short-term supply deficit, and because part of it has to do with the eurozone turning its back on diesels, so less platinum being needed and more palladium in gasoline catalytic converters. So there's a short-term supply deficit. It's exacerbated by the fact that palladium supply is very inelastic. It is not a standalone product in any mine in the world. It is either a co-product of platinum mining or it is a byproduct from nickel smelters. So it's kind of a double whammy right now. And the gold to palladium ratio is approaching 1, and we have not seen it that low since Q2 of 2002. And if you remember, or even if you don't, I'll tell you, that's when gold was less than $300 an ounce. So palladium went parabolic once before, and I think that's what's going to happen now. And it went parabolic in the second half of 2000, year 2000 through Q3 of 2001. And that's when, as I mentioned, gold was less than $300. And the Russians cut off exports. Norilsk,
Yep.
the state nickel company, cut off exports to the West. And Ford, which had all the big U.S. automakers moved to palladium versus platinum in the 1980s because it was so much cheaper. Doesn't work as well in catalytic converters, but much cheaper. So Ford went in, and when the Russians cut off exports, Ford tried to build this stockpile, or did build this stockpile of palladium. They hoarded palladium. And what happened? The price goes up. The Russians dump all their palladium stockpiles on the market. The palladium price crashes. As all markets that go exponential, they will go parabolic. That bubble ended, and Ford had to write up $1 billion against earnings in Q4 of 2001. So buyer beware here.
Yeah, sounds like 16 years later, history's going to repeat itself to a degree.
Well, we've seen it repeat itself a couple of times this year with the cryptocurrency bubble. About a year ago, or a year ago in a week, one hit 434 or $343, one of those two, and it's less than $4,000 now. And the other bubble is marijuana bubble.
Not exactly. And I have yet to meet one person who bought at $19,000 at Bitcoin. I've yet to meet that person. So I should start a social
probably
media
bankrupt
campaign.
now.
I should start a social media campaign to find that person. I just want to shake his hand. I just want to meet that person. So
yeah, well, if he's still alive and hadn't committed Harry,
probably. This was a great update, Mickey. Let's as always, we usually end our podcasts with our number of the week. What you got for us in store this week, Mickey?
Well, it's our 30th show, so I'm going to do some rounding up in honor of our 30th show, and my number is actually 20. Pardon me, Kai. My number is 29.9. So we'll round that up to 30, and that's the WT oil price loss in the last 2 months when it went from 75.37 to today's price at 52.86. A whopping 30% correction in the price of oil.
Wow. And I'll tell you, this is QE2 for the people right there. This is what's happening, in my opinion. So, we'll see. We'll see. You still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Waiting for your number.
Yeah. Oh, my number. I actually have two. I got more of a fun one, which I'm going to start with, and that's 500. And we talked about this before. Denver is 6-6 for the season. So
yes, sir.
So and we're still in the playoff hunt for some reason. So that's my fun number. But another one I came across the other day is 1191, and that's the number of mining companies listed on the TSX and TSX Venture right now, or as of October 31st, based on the TSX numbers. So I thought that was quite interesting because the number in my head was 1,400 all the time, and we're 200 below that. So there has been a massive drop-off in numbers. I can't remember when and where I got the 1,400 from, but 200 companies disappeared. So I thought that was worthwhile mentioning.
And that was from a couple of years ago, 1,400 juniors.
Yeah, so that's where I got it from, I think. So 1191 as of October 31st. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Does that include oil and gas companies? Just
it's classified as mining on the TSX website, so I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look that up. But it sounds about right, in my opinion. So that was an interesting one. Mickey, thank you so much for the update again on the metal prices and chatting about the markets here with you. We're going to do this probably one more time before Christmas. As soon as we get off the air, we're going to find a date to do it. And as always, thanks for your time. And Mickey, I know people should know by now, but where can they find you and where can they sign up to your newsletter?
MercenaryGeologist.com, and Twitter feed is @MercenaryGeo.
Fantastic. Mickey, thanks.
Thank you, Kai.